Hello, my name is JD, also known as JD Beauty. On this channel we talk about all things beauty. And we are doing another Glam Gore video today. But before we get to the Glam or the Gore, first, I am tired, and I'm sure you can notice that. It is 3 o'clock in the morning. I got home from work at 2. The grind never stops, unfortunately. Before we get to the video, I do have like 5 new subscribers, but I can only see 1 of you. Shout out to the Black Atlantean, but black is spelled with a V instead of an A. Shout out to you. Thank you so much for subscribing, and thank you so much to everyone who I can't see or shout out. I really appreciate the support. Back to the point at hand. Like I said, today is another Glam Gore video, and today I'll be talking about the movie Saw 2004. If you do not know what Saw is, it is one of my absolute top favorite movies. Under Halloween, maybe also under Bride of Chucky. Saw is a movie about a deranged killer, and basically he kidnaps people, puts them in traps, and is like, hey, if you want to live, hurt yourself. And that's the whole ordeal of Jigsaw, who thinks that he is not a murderer. So let's go ahead and put our hair back and let's talk about some killers. We start off with a brief image of a man laying in some water with an object floating above him, and then boom, title card. The man wakes up in his tub, he breathes out, he suddenly gets up, and as he gets up, he pulls the plug from his tub, and we watch as the water starts to drain, and we also watch as this object that was floating above him goes down the drain, gone for life. The man stumbles out of the bathtub, and we see that his leg is chained to a pipe. The man calls out for help. No one responds for a while, but then he hears something from the other side of the room, and he's like, hello? Who's there? And he's like, I'm probably dead. From the other side of the room, we hear another voice respond, you're not dead. Responding to me like the Grim Reaper does not make me feel very secure in the whole I'm alive thing. The man from the tub tells the voice, mysterious voice in this room, to turn on the lights, and the voice responds, I would if I could. But before he can really question that any further, the lights suddenly turn on, and we finally get a reveal of our location for the rest of this movie, which is the most disgusting looking, dingy, decrepit, horrible bathroom. Almost as horrifying as the bathroom itself. A dead body laid out right there in the middle of them both. Gun in one hand, tape recorder in the other hand, with a very obvious gunshot wound to the head. For the time being, we're going to be referring to these 2 people as man number 1, who is bathtub man, and man number 2, who is mysterious voice man. Lock in, they'll get names eventually, just, you know, hold on a second. Man number 1 is like, hey, what is this? And man number 2 is like, just be calm. Are you hurt is more important than where we are. Man number 2 says, what's your name? Man number 1 says,
my name is very fucking confused. What's your name?
Man number 2 introduces himself as Lawrence Martin. He's a doctor.
I'm a doctor.
Man number 1 suddenly seems to realize what situation he's in, so he frantically gets up and starts searching over his body, asking Lawrence if he sees any scars in his body. He's basically like, this is how this stuff goes. You wake up in a weird bathroom, no memory of how you got there, and you have all of your organs missing. And Lawrence is like, hey, calm down, nobody took your organs. Man number 2 is like, how do you know that? What are you, some type of surgeon? Yes, Lawrence is a surgeon. Lawrence once again asks for man number 1's name, and finally we can stop referring to him as man number 1 because his name is Adam. Adam will be pretty insufferable for the rest of this movie. Buckle up. After looking around the room for a second, Lawrence points out that there is a brand new clock in this bathroom. And while Adam doesn't get it at first, Lawrence points out that the rest of this room is completely filthy, but the clock is brand new. That means this clock was put in, which also means that whoever put them there wants them to know the time. Adam suddenly reaches into his pocket and realizes that he has an envelope in there. Inside of his envelope, he finds a tape. Lawrence asks where he found that at, and he's like, oh, my pocket. So Lawrence checks his pocket and also finds an envelope. He has his own tape, but he also has a key. Obviously, they both proceed to try using this key on their chains. Lawrence uses his first, and then he just like very badly throws it across the room at Adam. After failing to use the key on both of their chains, Adam finally takes note of the tape player, and he's like, oh, I can probably get that. He tries to reach for it, but his chain is too short and he cannot quite reach the body. So he then ties his shirt, and he tries to use that to like lasso it. It doesn't quite work. Shirt's not quite heavy enough to grab it. Lawrence says like, hey, look around, there's gotta be something you can use. So Adam does a little bit of thinking and searching, and then he eventually takes the plug out of the bath, the stopper. He ties that to his shirt, and then the power of God and enemy on his side, he eventually manages to lasso this random tape player out of this dead body's hands. Adam puts his tape in the tape player, and for the first time in this movie and in this series, we hear the iconic voice of our captor and our killer.
Rise and shine, Adam.
The voice greets Adam and then says, you may be wondering where you are. And instead of responding to that question, he says, I'll tell you where you might be. He tells Adam that he might be in the room that he eventually dies in. He proceeds to tell a story about how Adam watches other people from the shadows, watching other people live their lives. The voice proceeds to bully him, I guess, and calls him angry, apathetic, and just pathetic. The voice says, do you plan to watch yourself die today? Or do you plan to save yourself? Lawrence, famously bad at throwing things, tosses his tape over to Adam, very badly. Adam fetches the tape and then he plays it. We hear a nice
Dr. Gordon, this is your wake-up call.
and then the voice on the tape talks about how Lawrence often delivers the fatal news of death to his patients. He says that now Lawrence will be the cause of death, rather than just the voice that tells you are going to die. Adam then has to listen, as he's holding the tape recorder, that Lawrence's aim in this game is to kill Adam. The voice tells him that he has until 6 o'clock, which is why the clock is in this room, to kill Adam. He mentions the body in the middle of the room, telling a story about how with so much poison pumped into his body, the only real way out was to shoot himself, obviously hinting towards the gun in the body's hands. The voice says X marks the spot and then proceeds to say that if you fail to kill Adam by 6 o'clock, Alice and Diana will die. The voice says, let the games begin, and then the tape ends. Lawrence plays the tape back and listens extremely closely. He plays it back a couple of times and then he hears very quietly in the tape, the man says, follow your heart. Adam's like, what does that mean? And they both decide to start looking around the room for any type of heart symbolism. And eventually, they notice a heart shape drawn out on the toilet beside Adam. Adam very unfortunately decides to go straight for the hand and bowl method. No other previous thoughts around how he could do this, just hand in the bowl. And then Lawrence is like, oh, check the tank on the back. Which you should have did first, but whatever. Adam checks in there and he ends up pulling out a black plastic bag. Inside of the bag are 2 hand saws, or hacksaws? As they find the hacksaws, Adam looks at the bag for a second and then tosses it into the bathtub. No further words about that. Adam immediately proceeds to start sawing at his chain, and then Lawrence is like, hey, toss the other one my way. So Adam is like, oh right, my fault, OG, and tosses the other one to him. They both start sawing away. Adam immediately breaks his, and he gets extremely upset, breaks it some more, and then tosses the saw at the mirror on the wall, breaking a piece off of that. Lawrence continues to saw for a minute, and then eventually realizing that his attempts are futile, he decides to just, call it quits there. In what I can imagine would only be a moment of pure terror, Lawrence realizes that the reason the saws aren't working on the chains is because they aren't meant for the chains. They're meant to give them a way to saw through their skin. With that thought in mind, Lawrence says he thinks he knows who did this and who put them there. He says the last he heard, this individual was still on the run. The cops still haven't caught him, which he only knows because Lawrence himself was a suspect in this case. We then get a lovely flashback. Hopefully it's only one and not several. We get a flashback to these cops entering this scene where we see a man in a cage laying in a trap of barbed wire. One of the detectives, who is unnamed in this movie, but trust she will come back around, she says that the man died from extensive blood loss. She says that the man started at the back of the cage and then crawled his way through the barbed wire before he eventually came to a stop because of bleeding out to death. Detective woman, who will eventually be named in future movies, says that they also found a tape on the scene. She plays the tape and we hear this voice again, the one that we heard in the bathroom.
Hello, Paul.
You are a perfectly healthy, sane, middle-class man. Yet last month you ran a blade across your wrist. Did you cut yourself because you truly wanted to die? Or is it just because you wanted the attention? The killer says, tonight you'll show me. He says the trap you're in is pretty ironic. If you actually want to die, all you have to do is just sit still and let your time run out. The door will close and eventually you will die. But if you want to live, you have to cut yourself again and again and again. Crawl through the correct path in this barbed wire, get out of the door before the timer runs out and the door shuts. The voice then says, how much blood will you shed to stay alive? For some reason, our villain thinks that self-harm is a valid reason to kill someone. The detective lady explains that the timer was set to go off at 3 o'clock, which meant that he had 2 hours until the door shut. We then see one of many nauseating, fast, sped up edits of this man trying to escape the trap before he inevitably just died. The detectives then show a piece of skin that was carved out of this man's neck, I believe, and it is in the shape of a puzzle piece. Lawrence explains that after that, they started referring to the killer as the Jigsaw Killer. which means that from now on, I will be referring to the killer as Jigsaw. We flash back to the detectives as they get to another Jigsaw trap, and we hear another tape start to play. Jigsaw confronts the man for faking an illness. Not really sure what illness he was faking, but alas, he was faking one. He says that the man was put in this room with a slow-acting poison coursing through his veins. The antidote to this poison is in the safe in the room, and the kicker of many kickers, the combination to the safe is on the walls in this room, but yeah, everything is on the walls in this room. There's several numbers written across all the walls in this room. Oh my goodness, how will he ever find all of these numbers in a timely manner if he can't see? Well, don't worry about that, dear viewer, because Jigsaw has that figured out. He has given our main man here a candle, a lit candle, so he can find his way. There's also glass scattered on the floor, so watch out for that. But also, in case you needed one more little incentive to try to get yourself out of here, you are covered in flammable substance. So you have poison in your veins, weird numbers written on the wall, and you have to go through all these combinations in a timely manner. There's glass on the floor, you keep stepping on glass, and then you have flammable substance covering your entire body, and you have to light your way with a candle, a lit open flame. I think Jigsaw might have genuinely hated this man. I don't know who this guy is or what he did, but I promise you, whatever the lore reason is, Jigsaw despises this guy. We do get another nauseating, quickly edited scene of him trying to escape before he does inevitably burn to death. Detective lady points out that there's something else that's off about this scene. She points out a peephole in the wall, which means that Jigsaw stuck around because he wanted to watch this scene. She also reveals that she has a pen light that was found on the scene. The other detective says, hey, get this run for prints. We then flash forward, but not back to the bathroom. We're only flashing forward a little bit. We're in the same flashback, but a different time period of this flashback. Lock in. We're following Lawrence as he's in a hospital, and he is teaching these student nurse people. He's teaching them, and he's talking about a patient who has a tumor in his brain. While he talks about this patient and his brain tumor, a man who's just standing kind of off in the distance behind them steps in and says,
his name is John. Dr. Gordon. He's a very interesting person.
And then Lawrence gets a call for him to return to his office. As he leaves, one of the nurse student people watches him leave lustfully. Lawrence goes into his office and sees the detectives waiting for him, not the woman from earlier.
I'm
We have a
Detective
black man
Tapp,
and an
this is
Asian man.
Detective Singh, City Homicide.
He asks Lawrence where he was between the times of 11 p.m. to 1 a.m. the night before. When Lawrence is like, hey, what's going on here? Detective is like, maybe we should talk back at the station. And Lawrence is like, yeah, I can't do that. I'm a surgeon in a hospital and they need me here. So then the detective is like, that's the game you want to play? What's this? Holding up the pen light. I don't have a pen light. What's this? Is this yours? And then obviously we cut to the police station where Lawrence is now sitting, but he's in a room talking to his lawyer. And obviously the lawyer's like, so I'm not saying that you committed any type of crimes. I'm just saying that it's not looking good that, you know, your pen light was found at the scene of the murder. Not great news, you know? What were you doing last night? And Lawrence is like, I went to see someone. And the lawyer's like, so who did you go to see? And Lawrence is like, the lawyer's like, listen, you gotta be honest or, you know, prison. So eventually Lawrence answers and is like, listen, I went to see someone, it wasn't a patient. The lawyer's like, yeah, you should just go ahead and give your alibi to the police now, because if you give it later, they might not believe you. Tell the truth now. The detectives come back and are basically like, okay, well, unfortunately, your alibi plays out, so it couldn't have been you. Lawrence is like, okay, cool, great, fantastic. Can I go home now? But the detective, for some reason, says, no, I'd like you to stay and listen to this testimony from this victim who survived a jigsaw trap. Inside of the, I don't want to say interrogation room, she's not being interrogated, she's just giving her story. The girl is referred to as Amanda. Amanda regales the story of how she found herself inside of a jigsaw trap. The scene changes and we get another flashback within a flashback, but this flashback is even further back than this flashback. The scene changes to Amanda in a room with some type of contraption around her head. Just to skip ahead a little bit, even though it's going to be explained within 2 seconds, the trap on her head is referred to as the reverse bear trap, and it is the most iconic trap in Saw history, despite the fact that it is not used, technically is not actually seen in action until 7th movie, so 6 movies after this one. While she is tied to this chair, a TV in the corner of the room turns on. She looks at it and she sees a little puppet, and this puppet's name is Billy the Puppet, and he is the mascot for Jigsaw. Now, a lot of people see the puppet and think the puppet is Jigsaw. The puppet is Billy. Billy is the mascot for the man who is Jigsaw. Okay? Don't get confused. I'm here to teach you the ways. The puppet is Billy, the man is Jigsaw. Okay. We're locked back in now. Billy the puppet, who is again just a mascot, so actually Jigsaw, but Jigsaw is speaking to Billy, and he says,
Hello, Amanda.
I want to play a game, as he often does. He explains that if she still has that contraption on her head by the time her time runs out, her mouth will be permanently ripped open. Essentially, you have this trap around your head, and it's like this. And once it goes off, makes sense? Lock back in. Obviously, that is cause for concern. Jigsaw continues and tells her that the only key for this contraption is in the stomach of her dead soulmate. Her soulmate is just a guy who's laying on the floor. We don't ever know his name, but he's there for sure. We get another horribly edited, like really fast cut of Amanda kind of freaking out in her seat for a second, and then she frantically stands up, and as she stands up, a pin pulls on the back of her contraption, and the pin being pulled means that her time has now started. Amanda finally sees the body in the room, and she slowly approaches her lover and finds a scalpel on the ground. In a moment of true survival, Amanda grabs this scalpel, and as we see that this man is not dead at all and is very awake because his eyes are opening and he's like moaning, Amanda doesn't care though, because survival of the fittest, boy. So she stabs him to death a lot. The man was injected with an opiate overdose, so he could feel nothing and he couldn't move. Amanda gets the key out of her lover's guts and then fumbles around for a second to get it into the key slot. And eventually she unlocks it. She tears that thing off of her in just the nick of time as the trap goes off right as she tosses it off. Cutting back to the previous flashback, you know, the one that's 5 months ago, and now where Amanda is locked up in the room. The detective asks Amanda if she thinks that Jigsaw chose her because she was previously a drug addict. Amanda doesn't respond, and the detective, for some reason, asks Amanda if she feels grateful for the experience that Jigsaw put her through. Amanda's only response is that Jigsaw helped her. Back in the bathroom that you almost get enough time to forget about, Adam asks Lawrence, like, are you sure that our guy is this guy that you're talking about? He then proceeds to say, with very bad acting,
How do I know you're telling the truth? You could be the one who put me in this room!
Adam picks up the piece of glass that he previously broke off the mirror, and he's like, you tell me what's really going on here or else I'm gonna cut you with this. And then he proceeds to look at the glass, and he's like, this is two-way glass. He then throws a rock or two at the mirror to break the rest of it off, and behind this mirror we see another wall of glass, and behind that glass, a camera. They're being watched. By who? Jigsaw. Lawrence reminds Adam that Jigsaw told them to find the X. So he tells them, hey, let's look around for this X he speaks of again. Adam, for some reason, is upset that Lawrence is just being a rational guy during the situation, trying to find a way out and whatnot. He's like, why are you acting so calm? He has your wife and daughter, aren't you? Aren't you mad? Aren't you worried? And that finally gets Lawrence a little riled up, and he's like, yeah, I'm worried, bro. All I can think about is the last thing that I said to my daughter. You know what we get? You want to guess what we get? Yeah, it's another flashback. Yeah, so another flashback takes us to Lawrence's house, and we find ourselves in his daughter's room as she's laying in her bed. She suddenly wakes up. The daughter suddenly gets out of her bed, and she finds her way to her parents' room, where she stands creepily and stares at her mother like this, until her mother wakes up and is like, oh my god, baby, what's wrong? The daughter looks her mother straight in her spectacles and says,
there's a man in my room.
Alice is like, are you sure that you saw a man, or do you think that perhaps this was in your imagination? Diana, which is the daughter, is essentially like, no, I promise you on everything I love, there's a man in my room. Alice, her mother, is like, okay, well, I'll go check and make sure there's no man in your room. Diana says, nah, I want Daddy to check. They go to Lawrence's office. Alice tells him that his daughter had a bad dream and needs him to scare off the scary man. And Lawrence kind of pushes them off and is like, yeah, I'm busy right now. Alice is like, I'll handle it. Come on, daughter. I'll get the scary man out of your room. But then Lawrence closes his laptop and says, nope, I'm done. I can get it done. Lawrence checks this room and assures Diana there is absolutely no man in your room, I promise you. Lawrence's beeper goes off, and he's like, gotta go. Lawrence kisses Diana goodbye and goes to leave, but as he gets to the door, Diana says, "You're not gonna leave us, right?" Lawrence is like, "Did somebody say I was leaving?" And she's like, "No." Lawrence assures her, "I'm going absolutely nowhere." The scene then cuts back to the bathroom, and Lawrence asks this strange man who he does not know if he would like to see a picture of his daughter. He takes out his wallet and tosses it to Adam. Adam looks at this picture of his little girl and is like, "Oh." Adam proceeds to ask if he can see Lawrence's wife. Lawrence says, "Yeah, it's in the picture behind my daughter." Adam does as he's told, but instead of finding a picture of his wife, well, I mean, he does find a picture of the wife, but he finds a picture of Alice and Diana, wife and daughter, tied up in a picture with their mouths taped shut. On the back of the picture it says, "X marks the spot. Sometimes you see more with your eyes closed." This is where me and Adam got beef for the rest of our lives, because instead of telling Lawrence about what he found in his wallet, he proceeds to take the picture out of the wallet, hide it, and then say, "Hey, the picture you're talking about isn't in here." And he tosses the wallet back to Lawrence. Why? In another flashback back to Lawrence's house, we see, the scene with Lawrence saying, "We'll talk when I get back." The wife is like, "Just leave." So he walks out, but as the door closes, we snap back into Alice's room. Alice is very clearly creeped out as we hear some creaking coming from her closet. And then as she turns around, we see an eyeball peeking out at her from the closet, and all we hear is, "Good night, little girl." This individual in the closet bursts out of the closet. This person is standing over Diana. He goes to lunge for her, and Alice goes to lunge for him. We then see, nice little flash cut to Alice and Diana tied up in, I think, Diana's bedroom. No, sorry, Alice's bedroom. Apparently, one of the detectives, the black man from earlier, I'll just tell you now, Detective Black Man's name is Tap. Detective Tap is across the street, randomly. He's got eyes on Lawrence's apartment in possibly the same flashback. Honestly, couldn't tell you anymore. Tap is going over the tape that Amanda received in her trap. He's just looking at it several times, playing it back, playing it forward, playing it back, playing it forward. He's continuing to obsess over the tape until he finds what he's looking for. He sees a very blurry picture of a, I guess, known gang's symbol sprayed, tagged onto the wall. Tap then calls for his partner, Detective Singh, who we finally know his name as well. Kind of crazy, but whatever. Tap tells Singh to listen closely, and we all listen to this video as we can now apparently hear as a fire alarm is going off in this video. Tap is like, "Find where in this gang's territory area, I guess, where an alarm was going off at this time on this date," or whatever. Singh, with that information, somehow manages to find exactly that. Anyway, they go to this building together. They find the room, which is the exact place that this video was recorded. They continue their journey into a conjoined room where they see some things covered by some blankets. They suddenly hear somebody start to make noises from under a third blanket. So they go to pull that off, and they find a guy chilling in a chair under this blanket, strapped into some type of contraption. It's not a great scenario to be in. Just as they find this guy, a lift starts to come up onto the floor that they're on. Singh is like, "We can just shoot the guy." And Tap is like, "No, we gotta see him first. I want to see this guy." Tap eventually wins out the argument, and Singh covers this guy back up, and they both go to hide. We watch as a man in a black cloak, we watch as he steps off of the lift, and he goes to the guy, takes the sheet off of him, and he's like, "Awake already, Jeff." He tells the man in the trap, "Don't cry, because I'm finally giving your life a purpose." Detective Dumb and Dumber, Thing 1 and Thing 2, decide to pop out now. They come out with their guns up, and they're like, "Get down on the ground! Get down on the ground!" But they don't get to him fast enough because Jigsaw sets off the trap. Detective Tap is like, "How do we stop the trap?" And Jigsaw is like, "Oh, you have to get the key." Singh finds the key, but it's attached to a ring of many keys. Detective Tap gets Jigsaw down onto his knees while Singh struggles with the keys. Tap makes the mistake of looking away from Jigsaw and at Singh for like 2 whole seconds. Jigsaw reveals a blade from his arm. Blade reaches back, bow, slices Tap's throat. Detective Singh shoots after Jigsaw and then goes to help Tap, and then he's like, "Okay, wait, sit here. I'm gonna go get Jigsaw, and hopefully you're still alive when I get back." One of them does shoot Jigsaw in the leg, so he's kind of like limping away, but then he goes to shoot Jigsaw again, shoots in the back. Jigsaw drops to the ground, and Singh very slowly makes his way towards the body. And as he's walking, we see a tripwire on the ground. Singh doesn't notice in enough time, and he walks over the tripwire, and these shotguns that are hanging from the ceiling shoot him dead. Now we're back into the original timeline with our original cast, which is Lawrence and Adam. Are you confused with the flashbacks and flash forwards yet? Yeah, me too, and I've watched it 1,000 times. Proceed. Lawrence is like, we need to search the room again. Adam is too busy looking at that picture of Lawrence's kidnapped family that he still hasn't shown him yet. Lawrence is like, there's no reason that we shouldn't help each other. And Adam is like, what can we do? We're chained up. And Lawrence is like, let's just think. And Adam is like, I am thinking. Lawrence says, well, don't keep me in the dark about what you're thinking. And that triggers a thought, our first thought from Adam. His one little brain cell gets triggered, and he's like, turn the lights off. Lawrence turns the light off, and revealed to them is an X on the wall right behind Lawrence. Lawrence breaks the wall open and finds a locked box inside. Adam tosses the key from earlier back over to him. Lawrence finds a flip phone, 2 cigarettes, a lighter, and a note that says, somewhere, I had a typo, and it says, smoking is only pounds when it ends in bloodshed. Who knows what that was supposed to say? Think about this. You don't need a gun to kill Adam, because remember, the aim of the game is for this man to kill Adam. Instead of worrying about the cigarettes, he grabs the flip phone and attempts to call the police. Obviously that doesn't work. Then he realizes that this phone is only meant to receive calls, not make them. Once he realizes that the phone can only receive calls, Lawrence says, this has happened before. Then we get another flashback. He tells us about the night that he finished at the hospital. He was walking back to his car where he thought he was alone, but then we hear a camera go off and we see a flash. Lawrence looks up, he sees no one around, and he's like, okay, whatever, I guess. Lawrence then goes to make a call on a payphone because it's 2004, but the phone is down. So he pulls out his cell phone, which he didn't use the first time, another flip phone because it's 2004. He goes to make a call, but his phone is also down. While he fails to make this call, we also see that his back door is sliding open, and we see someone crawling out of it, and eventually we see someone in a pig mask crawling around the side of the car before they eventually get to Lawrence, and bow, he's kidnapped. Now back in the bathroom, Lawrence says the pig mask was waiting for them, waiting for him. Lawrence then asks, how did Adam know to turn the lights off? Eventually Adam says it was just instinct. Lawrence tells him that he's a terrible liar. Adam's like, you say it like you know me. And Lawrence is like, just tell me what you're, what aren't you telling me? Adam says, oh, you want to know? As if that wasn't the whole point of this conversation. And Lawrence is like, yeah, I want to know. So now Adam finally tosses the picture of Lawrence's family being held captive in that picture. Lawrence is very reasonably upset about this being kept from him. He's like, you had this whole time? And Adam is like, yeah. And Lawrence is like, why didn't you tell me? And Adam was like, I couldn't show you. Yes, you could have. Lawrence is like, it's time to start thinking again. And he looks down at the note about the, the cigarettes and whatnot. He remembers that the voice on one of the recordings said that the body in the middle of the floor had a lot of poison pumping through his veins, and that's why he ended up shooting himself. We watch as Lawrence dips the end of a cigarette into the poison blood, and then completely inconspicuously, he turns the lights off and starts to whisper to Adam. And then, after a while, they turn the lights back on. Lawrence tosses the cigarette that is clearly not dipped in the poison blood over to Adam, and is like, here, smoke it then. And Adam's like, okay, sure. Adam smokes a cigarette and then proceeds to very badly act out like he is being poisoned. No one believed any part of that, but okay. Obviously the person watching them does not believe them, and he shocks Adam. He's like, he shocked me. Lawrence is like, you don't have to lie. And Adam's like, why would I lie? Why would I break our little game here? He shocked me. Adam then suddenly says, I remember everything now. And we get, you guessed it, another flashback in this godforsaken, fantastic but godforsaken movie. We see Adam entering his apartment and walking into a dark room where he has a bunch of photos hanging up. As Adam takes one of his newly developed pictures out of the water or whatever and hangs it up, we see that the picture is of none other than Dr. Lawrence Gordon, and he has many pictures of this man. We cut to later in the night as Adam is suddenly waking up in his dark room. As he gets up or wakes up, he notices that all of his lights are off. So he grabs his flashlight, but that is also not working. He hears something in his apartment, so he grabs his camera and he makes his way through there. Flash, looking around, flash, and then he hears something else and he goes into what I believe may be his room. He goes in there, he hears a weird laughing sound, and he turns around and he sees Billy the puppet laying in his chair. You know what that means. After Billy goes quiet, Adam hears another sound. So he approaches the door and he's like, I'll kill you. Do you know that I'll kill you? I'm crazy, bro. I'll kill you with my bat and my camera. I'll kill you. Anyway, he goes to open the door and pig face attack, Back in the horrible bathroom, The flip phone that Lawrence got in his box starts to ring. He answers it and he hears his daughter and she's like, Daddy, I'm scared. And Lawrence is like, hey, oh my God, Pumpkin, I love you so much. Can I speak to my wife? The daughter's like, the bad man from my room is here. Well, it's almost like you should have checked the room clearer after she said that a man was in her room. She explains that he has them tied up and has a gun. The man then takes the phone from Diana, the child, and gives it to Alice, the wife. And then she says, don't believe Adam's lies. He knows you. He knew all about you before today. The man then takes the phone away from her and he hangs up. Lawrence proceeds to threaten the camera a little bit more, and then he starts to tweak out on the floor for a little bit. And then Adam's like, hey bro, you cool? That makes Lawrence tell him that his wife mentioned Adam by name. Adam's like, well, what did she say about me? And Lawrence repeats that she said not to believe him. Adam says, believe me about what? Lawrence says, she told me you knew me. Lawrence asks once again who Adam is, and Adam's like, you know who I am. And that causes Lawrence to crash out, and he's like,
Stop the lies! You're a liar!
Adam's like, I'm a liar? What did you do last night, Lawrence? When you said that you were on the way to the hospital. But you didn't go to the hospital, did you? And he reminds Lawrence, don't you remember getting your picture taken in that parking garage? Adam says, I have proof that you didn't even go near a hospital that night. Adam grabs the bag that he previously hid inside of the bathtub, the plastic bag from earlier. He opens it up, takes out a bunch of pictures as his proof, and he tosses them over to Lawrence. Lawrence is like, but why? Adam says, I get paid to take pictures of rich guys like you ending up in seedy looking motels. Adam asks Lawrence, what did you do in that motel with that woman? We then get, yes, another flashback, and this time we are in this motel with Lawrence as he meets up with the young lady who was like eyeing him down earlier in the hospital. She goes to start unbuttoning her shirt, but Lawrence stops her and is like, stop, we shouldn't be doing this. And she's like, what are you talking about? This is what we're here for. I thought we had something like, and he's like, I'm sorry, I gotta go. So he starts to leave, and as he gets to the door, the phone in this motel room starts to ring. So then she goes to answer the phone, and as she answers it, she says, it's for you. Lawrence says, hello, and all we hear is,
I know what you're doing.
Flashback to the bathroom. Lawrence asks Adam, who paid you to follow me? Clearly whoever paid you to take these pictures of me is the person behind all of this. And Lawrence is like, okay, give me more detail. What does he look like? Adam's like, I don't know what to tell you. I don't remember. And Lawrence is like, you trying to tell me you don't remember a single detail about this man who is paying you to watch me? And Adam's like, promise you, bro, I know nothing. Lawrence eventually gets irritated and is like, whatever, I give up. But then Adam's like, okay, fine, it's a tall black guy with a scar around his neck. And in that moment, we watch as, in his memory, Detective Tapp steps out of the shadows and reveals himself as the man who paid Adam to follow Lawrence. Lawrence is pretty upset, and he's like, so you're trying to tell me that Detective Tapp paid you to follow me? And Adam was like, there's no way that guy was a cop. And Lawrence is like, well, no, he was discharged after he went crazy after his partner was murdered in front of him. Tapp became obsessed with the idea of Lawrence as the jigsaw killer. Adam notices that one of the pictures on the ground has a man looking through the blinds or the curtains of Lawrence's house. Lawrence looks closer and he says that he knows this man. He refers to him as Zepp, the orderly from the hospital who was speaking of the tumor patient earlier. Our captor is finally revealed as Zepp, the orderly. Adam suddenly says, look, and he points to the clock on the wall. Lawrence looks up and we watch as the clock strikes 6 o'clock. Lawrence failed to kill Adam before 6 o'clock, which of course means it is now time to kill his family. Back in the room, Alice has managed to get herself free from her ropes. Zepp comes in and is like, hey, your time's up, pal. Don't know what to tell you, but you have to be the one to tell Lawrence that his time is up. Back in the bathroom, Lawrence answers the phone and is like, is this you, Zepp? And the wife is like, hey, no, it's not. You failed. She then rushes Zepp. She grabs his gun. They wrestle with the gun. All Lawrence hears from the other side of the phone is just struggles and his daughter screaming. So, not great from his end. Also a couple of gunshots, which Detective Tapp across the street also hears, and he goes over. Alice gets the gun from Zepp and also gets the phone. Alice is like, where are you right now? And Lawrence is like, I'm in a weird bathroom being held captive. And Alice is like, you're trying to tell me that you're not on the way right now, bro? I need you. Daughter's like, mommy. Which causes Alice to unfortunately look away for 1 second too long, and Zepp rushes for the gun. And again, all Lawrence hears is a struggle and screaming and gunshots, and he's thinking, oh my God, it's over. Zepp gets the gun back, but just as Tapp rushes into the house. So now those two start shooting at each other, and Alice and Diana just rush off together. Tapp runs out of bullets and proceeds to just tackle Zepp. They have a wild fight before Zepp eventually gets the upper hand, and he runs out to find Alice and Diana, mother and daughter. He says, well, since I can't kill you, I'm just gonna go ahead and go kill Lawrence instead. Tapp obviously goes after Zepp, and we see a high-speed chase between Zepp and Zepp and Tap. It's not actually high speed, it's just a regular clip of driving sped up. And you can tell. Back in the bathroom, the flip phone for Lawrence starts to ring, and Lawrence goes to answer it, but he realizes that he accidentally put it too far away so he can't reach it. Finally, at the end of his rope, Lawrence shrugs his shirt off, ties it around his leg, puts that shirt in his mouth, and just grabs that hacksaw and just starts sawing away. Meanwhile, Tap finally catches up to Zepp. He tackles him, but Zepp finally manages to shoot Zap. Zepp finally manages to shoot Tap. Tap falls to the ground, and then Zepp goes off to finish Lawrence. Back in the bathroom, Lawrence crawls to the dead body in the middle of the floor, and he finally grabs his gun. He loads his bullet into it, and he starts to point his gun at Adam, and he's like, "You have to die." And Adam's like, "But I want to live." And Lawrence is like, "But you have to die, my family." And Adam's like, "Please, I want to live." Lawrence shoots Adam, even though it's way past 6 now, while he's like frantically crying. Zepp shows up in the bathroom, he slides the door open. Zepp is like, "Yeah, it's way too late, guy. I still have to kill you." Lawrence is like, "But why?" And Zepp is like, "It's the rules." Zepp points his gun at Lawrence. Before he can pull the trigger, his leg gets snatched by Adam. He's not dead, he's alive. He snatches him, pulls him to the ground, and then he grabs the toilet lid, the lid to the tank, and he just starts, bow, bow, bow. Lawrence crawls over to Adam, and they put their foreheads against each other. Lawrence is like, "I have to go get help." And Adam's like, "Don't leave me." Lawrence is like, "I promise I'll bring back help." After making that promise, Lawrence crawls his way out of the bathroom. Adam goes over Zepp's body, looking for a key for his chain, but he doesn't find a key. Instead, he finds only Zepp's wallet and a tape. Adam plays the tape, and we hear the iconic theme for this series start to play, as we hear the even more iconic voice say,
Hello, Mr. Hindle. Or as they called you around the hospital, Zap.
The voice in the recording says that Zepp had to make a choice. There's slow-acting poison in his blood, and only the guy on the recording has the antidote for it. The voice basically asks Zepp, "Will you kill a mother and child for your own survival?" And in the distance, right behind him, we watch as the body that's been on the ground throughout this entire movie gets up onto its hands and knees, stretches, and we get the absolute reveal of a lifetime as this dead body rips the prosthetic that looked like a headshot wound off of his head. And the dead body that's been in the bathroom throughout this whole movie is the real Jigsaw killer. He explains to Adam that the key to the chain attached to him was in the water that he woke up in, the object that we watched wash down the drain in the beginning of the movie. We then get a flashback back to the hospital as Zepp is talking about this interesting patient with a brain tumor, and his name is John Kramer. And John Kramer, the brain tumor patient from the hospital, is the Jigsaw killer. Adam tries to shoot Jigsaw, but Jigsaw shocks him. Adam then watches as the mastermind behind everything walks away. He turns off the light, he goes to the door, and he gives the most iconic line in these movies. He says, "Game over!" Adam screams into the darkness as the credits start to roll, ending the movie with us unaware of both his and Lawrence's fate. Bow! That's Saw. That's the movie. Very iconic movie. I love it so much. It's one of my favorites. We're at the end of the video. If you like this video, make sure to leave a like, comment, subscribe. I love seeing you guys' comments. If you want to support me in any other ways, check out my previous videos. Look in my description. You can see my Cashapp in there. If you want to send me a couple dollars, not mandatory, just a suggestion. Also, my Instagram is in there. I sometimes post on there when I remember. But that does mean that we're at the end of the video, which of course means that I do not have an outro. I never do have an outro. I probably never will have an outro. At this point, not having an outro is my outro. However,
Yes, I'm willing to risk it. Give me that sweet cancer.